James here. I'm here with Greg Weisman, the author of Reign of Ghosts, and I'm here at Mysterious Galaxy on their 21st birthday bash. And we just had more books handed to us. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm good. We're
You're
selling
good.
books, and
All right.
my first novel, Reign of the Ghost, came out in December. That's this one, and very excited about that. The second book, Spirits of Ash and Foam, comes out July 8th of 2014, so
All right.
not too long from now.
Coming out this fall,
Well, this summer.
this summer, summer, fall. Yep.
And so it's great that Mysterious Galaxy invited me down, and I'm having a lot of fun.
All right. Tell us about Reign of the Ghosts.
Rain is about a 13-year-old girl named Rain Cacique who lives on a chain of Caribbean islands called the Ghost Keys, or the Ghosts for short. And her parents work in the tourist industry. Her mom runs a bed and breakfast. Her dad runs a charter boat service. And Rain, when she's not in school, spends a lot of time making beds at the B&B, serving breakfast, cutting bait for the charter boat, and she just feels trapped. She feels like her whole life is going to be working for tourists. And the one person who sort of makes her feel like there's a larger world out there is her grandfather, and he gives her an armband. And before she knows it, she has got the ability to see and to talk to ghosts. She soon finds out she has a mission, she has a destiny. And basically it's a 9-book series. The first book's out, second book's out in July, and hopefully I'll write the next 7 after that.
All right. And can you talk a little bit about her mission at all, or you want to keep that a mystery? Or
I think that's better to hold tight to for now.
Okay.
I think it's more fun to read it than to have me just talk about it.
And then who are some of her companions? We have her grandfather. We also have her friend Charlie.
Friend Charlie. Rain is 13, and Charlie's her best friend, also 13, and they they totally grew up together. And Charlie is faced with this sudden dilemma that he has found. All of a sudden, he realizes he's got a big crush on his best friend. That she's a little bit oblivious to, or entirely oblivious to. And he doesn't know how it happened, and he doesn't know why it happened, and he wishes it hadn't happened most of the time. But we also have a new friend, Miranda, who's new to school. And she's from the Ghost Keys, but she was basically raised in Europe, so she's moved back to town.
Okay.
Then her maternal grandfather, Bastian, is an important character in the book. And there are a lot of characters. Like most of my animated series, it's a very large cast. And the second book, which is twice as long as the first book, expands the cast, goes into more depth on the characters we met in the first book, and also adds a number of additional characters.
Cool. And so her sort of special ability is that she can see and talk to dead people?
That's it, exactly.
And
she can communicate with ghosts.
And does she help them? Does she just interact with them?
She tries to help. There are some of the ghosts, like people, some ghosts are good, some not so good. And she's got a lot to deal with in both books and in the books to follow, hopefully.
All right. And so this is going to be this is the start of a 9-book series. You're working on the 3rd book right now, or?
I am. I started researching the 3rd book, which is called Mask of Bones, and I know the story, I have that down pat, but I do a lot of research because I want to get the sense of place correct, and the mythology. It's all based on Taino mythology, so I'm researching that, and I'm also researching the history of the Caribbean and all sorts of stuff.
Are you going to do any field visits?
I'd love to do that. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but it'd be great. And I love the world. There's a lot of Shakespeare in the book too, which is another sort of favorite of mine, and the Tempest sort of is very important to the book series, and so I'm having a great time doing it. And it's, I work in animation in a very collaborative medium, and that's wonderful. But there's also something to be said to doing something that's just mine, and it's been great.
Cool. So, what are some of the other differences between writing a novel and working in animation?
Well, the main thing is, I work in entertainment that involves, you know, actors doing dialogue and composers composing music and artists creating.
Can I steal a chocolate from you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Artists literally painting the world around the characters and around the story. And when writing the book, all that's on me. If I want there to be music or a sense of score in it, even if there's not literally music playing, then I have to do that in sort of it sounds pretentious, but sort of the poetic quality of the writing. All the acting has to come across in the dialogue itself, because I don't actually have an actor who can take a mediocre line of mine and make it brilliant. I need to make sure that it's working even without an actor doing the reading. When painting a scene, I now have to do it in words as opposed to just counting on the artist to do it for me. One of the things that was most difficult about writing the second book, really, is, if you're doing a second episode of a TV show, and Superboy appears for the second time, I don't have to describe him.
Right.
Again, it's just Superboy. He's on screen. But when you're doing a second book in a series, I've got to describe Rain all over again, and yet do it in a different way than I described her in the first book, so that the people who read the first book aren't bored as they.
Yeah, that is a challenge.
That was the thing that most caught me off guard. It's sort of obvious when you think about it, but I hadn't thought about it until I sat down to write the second book and realized that there were places and people and stuff that I'd already described once, and thought I'd done it, as good a job describing them as I possibly could, and then realized I have to describe these all over again in the second book, and I can't I can't just lift the language and repeat it. That would be awful. So that was actually the toughest part about writing the second book, was finding new ways to describe the same things. There's plenty of new stuff in the second book as well, of course, but there's obviously, it's a series, so a lot of the same
recurring locations and people,
characters and stuff are there, and so I have to do it again, but in a different manner, and that was definitely a challenge.
And then on your work on animation, you mentioned back in the panel that there is also a challenge of writing towards the target demographic, but also trying to write bigger than that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in most of the cartoons I do, I think of it, I try to picture it like a bullseye. In other words, the target that we're giving marching orders to hit is the center of the bullseye, and we have to hit that. But I also want everybody else. I'm greedy, I guess. I don't just want boys 6 to 11 to watch my shows. I want girls to watch the show. I want younger kids to watch the shows. I want older kids to watch the shows. Tweens, teens, college-age kids, and adults. So, as I said in the meeting earlier, my goal is always just to write something that I would like to see or I would like to read, and cross my fingers that there are enough people out there who are going to feel the same way, that the show or the book is a success. Because my feeling is that if I'm not passionate about the work, how can I expect anyone else to get passionate about it? So I have to write to please myself, because otherwise I won't be passionate about it, and it'll all be pretty hollow.
So, with your work on Gargoyles and Young Justice, obviously you're doing now a lot of interaction with the fans. How is that building up, as you start getting towards Rebels?
Rebels isn't even out yet, and it's been grand fun working on Rebels. Fans seem to be getting very excited about it, but I'm not allowed to talk about it, and so that helps, because people ask me questions I just can't answer.
Yeah.
And B, the show's not out yet. When the show's out and people actually have, episodes to respond to, I think it'll be very different. Hopefully they'll love what has been done.
And they've introduced the characters, and you just as with Gargoyles, you expanded out. Instead of just having male characters, we have female characters in prominent roles. We have characters of color. How important is that for you?
It's extremely important to me. It has been since I started in this business, and that is animation, and before that even. We live in a diverse world, I'm a 50-year-old white guy, but I want my children exposed to more than that, and I want them to know that it's a diverse world out there, and it's always been a priority to me, and I think we've shown that, having strong female characters, characters of color. We did that in Gargoyles. I've been doing that in every show I've ever done, Spectacular Spider-Man, Young Justice, even shows that are adapted from another property. I don't think that's a legit excuse to have a non-diverse world. I don't care if it was developed originally in 1962. I want the world to reflect what the world truly is, and should have reflected what it was in 62. No matter how much I love Spider-Man, the fact is that a world that was almost entirely white wasn't accurate even in 1962, and there's certainly no justification for it in 2008 when we did the Spectacular Spider-Man television series. That's not to denigrate what was done on Spider-Man in the 60s. I love that stuff, but we're more enlightened now, and we should be more enlightened now, and the work should reflect the world, not sort of force the world to look like something it's not.
Okay.
And I think that's equally important, even in a science fiction property like Star Wars, where it's a different world. As far as I'm concerned, every character in every one of the leads in Star Wars Rebels is a character of color in one way or another.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So you also mentioned in the panel that Reign of the Ghosts, you're also thinking ahead towards a second 9-book series, and then you also talked about if you had another series to work on, you'd pick up time travel.
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of time travel in Gargoyles, and got kind of fascinated with the rules involved, in different versions of time travel stories, and so I have an idea for a series of books that really is about time travel. It's not where time travel is sort of, like in Gargoyles, time travel was just an element, it was incidental to what was going on, but I'm interested in doing a series that's dead on about time travelers.
Okay.
But that's a ways off. I mean, I work full-time in animation, and so just writing a book a year is a challenge for me. And right now my focus is really on the world of the ghosts and Reign's story, and I've got at least, 2 9-book series worth of stuff. I mean, I start off with one 9-book series, and I've already sort of figured out the basics of the second 9-book series, and for all I know, it'll never end. But right now, I've sort of got a really solid idea of the first 9 and a more vague idea of the second 9, and we'll go from there.
And then how would you describe the way you write? Do you have any particular things you do, or?
I do a lot of research first. I try to get all that done. Then I do a lot of outlining. I use index cards, multicolored index cards on a bulletin board, so that I move the cards around until I feel like I've really got the story pretty well locked in. And so, for example, on Reign, there were 693 index cards.
Wow.
And different colors signify different aspects of the book. The different colors sort of helps me visually. If I'm looking at the wall, the bulletin board, and I'm going, wow, I haven't done blue in a while, that sort of suggests to me that I've let this subplot lie fallow for a while, and maybe I should get back to it. I might sit there and go, no, that's okay, I don't need to get back to blue yet, but
it's a good way to keep track of everything.
But it helps, just the visual cues of that helps me a lot. And then when I sit down, I take the index cards and I just transcribe it onto a single document, and I start writing. And that still allows for serendipity. There were a couple characters in Spirits that had very minor roles in the book. I mean, literally, like one of them was just supposed to be a walk-on, and one had a very small part. And as I was writing, those characters became much more important, and I hadn't outlined any plans for them throughout the whole book, and found that I've got to tell their stories as well. And so I allow myself the room to discover things in the writing process, but I still am doing that off of a really strong sort of foundation, a strong skeleton for the story. So I don't have to meander a lot. I can be very direct.
Okay, very cool. Well, thank you very much for taking time to answer a few questions for us today.
Happy to do it. Thanks for you taking the time.
All right, thank you.